قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون صدق الله العظيم. The ayah of the Quran that I recited to you, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the prescription of the sawm or the fasting so that you may achieve piety or righteousness. Now a lot of the time when we talk about righteousness, we think it only starts and ends with us. We don't think in a bigger picture. Righteousness is something that affects an individual, of course, at an individual level, but also it goes beyond that and affects the community, sometimes the nation. Sometimes when you have this piety in you, the evil forces will try to fight the piety. And in that whole process, you would have to go through several sacrifices. You will lose a few things in life. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that this life has been given to you as a test. Why? So that when you return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you will see who did a better job. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that in this life, we will give you tests sometime with hunger, sometimes with fear, sometimes about yourself, sometimes about the luxuries of life. I would like to talk about one personality from the Islamic history today who died as a martyr, as a shaheed in the month of Ramadan. It is not 100% sure if it was the 17th or the 19th. There are two different opinions. We're talking about none other than the son-in-law of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who also happened to be his cousin, Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu. It was the month of Ramadan. He's walking towards the masjid for the Fajr Salah. The man by the name of Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam, he attacked him and he struck him right where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam foretold Ali radiyallahu anhu that there are two people with ill hearts. One that killed the she-camel of Salih alayhi salam, and the second one will be the one that will struck you, Ya Ali, and he will struck you on your head, and he will struck you at so-and-so place, and that's exactly where he struck him. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was in a lot of pain for 2 days before he passed away. This man, Ibn Muljam, do not be misguided by his first name, Abdul Rahman. These are the people that we call Al-Khawarij. Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that these people are outside the fold of Islam. And he said to his companions, when you look at their salah, when you look at their siyam, their fasting, their prayers, their recitation of the Holy Quran, you will be like, oh my God, how much do these guys worship Allah? But they will be outside the fold of Islam, exactly like an arrow that misses a hunt. That it doesn't even touches any part of the hunt and completely misses it, exactly the same way they're outside the fold of Islam. How did these Khawarij came into existence? There's a historical background that at one point in time, these were the allies of Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu. And when Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu anhu went in pact or in reconciliation with Sayyidina Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu at the battleground of the Battle of Siffin, which happened because Sayyidina Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu was asking that the people who are responsible for the bloodshed of Uthman should be brought to justice. And Sayyidina Ali said, in this turmoil situation, I need to settle down before I can bring them to justice. Anyway, when that pact took place at Siffin, these people who were fighting on the side of Sayyidina Ali left him, and they started what we call misquoting Quran. They used the ayahs of the Quran and then misquoted them against Sayyidina Ali and called him kafir. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu sent his cousin, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, to talk to these guys, but they wouldn't listen. These guys were against all the Muslims of their times. To an extent, the three of them gathered in Kaaba. 3 people out of the Khawarij gathered in Kaaba, and they took an oath that on the same night we will struck the 3 heads of the Muslim empire. If they all die, the whole Muslim empire will collapse, and then we will take over. So one of the man by the name of Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam said, I take an oath to kill Ali. Another one said, I take an oath to kill Muawiyah. The third one said, I take an oath to kill Amr ibn As, the ruler of Egypt. They all went their ways the same day, the same Fajr prayer time. They all attacked the 3 people. However, one of the other 2 was ill that day, so he sent somebody else in his place to lead the prayer. That person was martyred. The third person was injured in the attack, but Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was the only one that passed away. These Khawarij have existed, still exist, and will continue to exist. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that they will exist till the time of Dajjal, which in English you call Antichrist. Because Dajjal is the one that Isa alayhi salam on his coming back will fight. And these people in some shape or form will exist. These are the people who have extreme hatred in their hearts towards the companions, towards the Ahl al-Bayt. They are called the Khawarij. Why are we bringing these topics at the same time we're talking about righteousness and piety? Because you have to be aware of these people. Now with the social media at its rise, they probably exist in social media. They may be influencing people. They may be influencing youth. You cannot just take the knowledge of religion from anybody and everybody. You have to be cautious and careful who you're listening to, where you're grabbing this knowledge from. At the same time that we have Khawarij, we have Nawasib. We have Rawafid. Nawasib are the people who hate Ahl al-Bayt. And Rawafid are the people who love Ahl al-Bayt so much that they hate the companions. So you have to be aware of the 3 extremes. And in their life, the life of the companions, they had to maintain the righteousness, at the same time fight with all these elements of society, which was as open to them as you can imagine, and in the state when things were not 100% perfect. These people rose at the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu to an extent where they killed him. The 5.5 years of Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa after the companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, 5.5 years of his caliphate was spent fighting these people. Fighting these people. After them, they still continued one way or the other. So when you talk about righteousness, the righteousness is also by the outside influence that's coming into you. What kind of influence are you taking into yourself? Now that takes us back to Surah Al-Fatiha, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to make this dua, that, oh Allah, do not make us among those people, غَيْرَ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Do not make us among those people who are deviant, who have lost their ways, on whom your wrath is. So that's why a lot of the time people are thinking that they're righteous. They're thinking that they're on the right path, but indeed they're not. So you have to always keep yourself in check. Keep your family in check. Check the people that you're having conversations with. Where are they getting all this information from? Why is their thought process like that? Because you cannot let the people that you are with to corrupt you. You have to hang out with the people to influence you positively in a good way, and you influence them positively in the good way back. So never ever think that the job is over. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a reason said that إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Those who steadfast with truth, and those who steadfast with patience. Look at our brothers in Palestine. Close to 75 years They're living a life that you can't even imagine, which is getting worse and worse and worse every day. Look at those in Syria. The families torn apart. People in Yemen. People in Kashmir. People in other parts of the world. Some of them are at a very bad shape at the hands of so-called Muslims. They have their own version of Islam. Their version of Islam basically is against Muslims. And you will find so many examples that come in the newsprint, news media. You hear some strange stories and you're like, how can a Muslim be thinking like that? Because they never kept their knowledge of Islam in balance. They lost their way. They thought they were righteous. They read the Quran, but they never understood the Quran. They read the Hadith, but they never truly understood the Hadith. They had their own interpretations of problems. Sometimes they used Islam's knowledge to gain worldly affairs. Islam is not there to be used. That's why there are a lot of things that in these times, especially as we're getting closer and closer and closer to the end of the times, that you have to be careful about. We need to be aware that what are the prophecies that Prophet ﷺ told us about the end of the times before the coming of the Dajjal. Who will be the people with Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam? Why Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam will come? What time he will come? Who will be the leader of the Muslims at that time? Al-Mahdi. Why? And then what will happen after Dajjal is gone? Who is God, my God? Who is Yajuj, Majuj that you read about in Surah Al-Kahf? Why will they come out? What will they do? How will Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam take care of this massive, massive army? When Muslims will be confined to only few cities. A man will say that I had 10 kids, all 10 sons died in the battles. Massive battles of Armageddon will wipe out the humanity from the face of the earth for the most part. There's a reason that the Prophet ﷺ said, read Surah Al-Kahf once a week on Friday. There is, and the second thing is, read the first 10 ayahs or the last 10 ayahs or both every day. That will save you from the fitna of Dajjal. Because the fitna of Dajjal will attack your iman. A person who will be a believer will go to Dajjal and say, what can he do to me? I'm a good believer. My faith is strong. He will go and attend his masses, will be gone. Lose his faith. And those 10 ayahs are very, very strong in terms of protecting your faith. Open Surah Al-Kahf and read the meanings of those, the first 10 and the last 10 ayahs. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a reason talks about the iman of youth who took refuge in the cave. There's a reason that story is there in Surah Al-Kahf. It talks about the power of unity. When you stand with each other instead of against each other, you are powerful. You're powerful to an extent that these bunch of youth kids stood up against the king of the time, and they knew the punishment that will come from the king will be nothing but capital punishment. Yet they stood against the king and said, we believe in one God. We don't believe in your gods. If we believe in these gods which are fake, we have done injustice. We cannot commit this injustice. When the truth has come to us, you have to understand the Quran. You have to pay attention to the details. So that's why it's very important that in this month of Ramadan, when we are reflecting upon self-righteousness, when we are looking on ourselves, we also have to gain our knowledge and be aware of why things are happening, on what direction things are going. Am I prepared? Am I aware? Do I have the knowledge? Where do I stand? We have so much knowledge about the worldly affairs. Unbelievable. If I ask people, how's the Apple stock doing today? A lot of them will be saying, I know how it's doing today. What happened to the Google stock yesterday? Oh man, I don't know what's wrong with Google. But when it comes to the matters, things that matter in this life and hereafter, it's in the back seat. That shouldn't be the case. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.